I feel like it's been a long time since I did a video here. Feels a lot longer than it's actually been. Today, I'm going to talk about you should be careful who you're friends with, or you should be careful who your friends are. Yeah. Basically, if you want to be a successful person, you need to be surrounded by successful people somehow. Or at the very least, you shouldn't be friends with people or surrounded by people who are not who are not responsible. I don't want to say not doing well for themselves, because I don't want to sound like, I know this already sounds a bit rude, but I'm not trying to be rude, I'm just trying to be real. You are who you surround yourself with, whether you like it or not. Because if you're spending time with people and you're it's not just the fact that you're spending time with these people that are in your circle. And it's not just that you are mimicking the same, if you share the same activities and these activities don't really have anything that helps you, but it's just something that your group of friends or whatever are interested in, and you start to change as a person, there has to be a natural level of a bit of distance that happens. It's a healthy distance where you start to grow in a different direction or go in a different direction, and you need to, in order to fill that time, or in order to free that time up for the new path, obviously you have to change what you've been doing. And part of that is growing a little bit more distant from the people who were in your past or who are in your present right now. Because who you are around with now, those people came to you from your past. You know, your past self attracted those people. So if your present self is changing, or you want to change, obviously, naturally, you will have to grow a bit separate from these people. And I was gonna say, it's not just that you share the same activities that may or may not be productive. It's also that you mimic these people mentally. You it's hard to explain, because I have experienced this myself. I guess I could just explain my personal experience. If I grow up in an environment where I am watching people live a certain way, whether I like it or not, that is going to become at least part of my mental environment, if that's all I am surrounded by. And so in my case, I have a friend who I haven't seen in a long time, like multiple years. And I visited him a couple weeks ago. He's an old friend from middle school. And so we have history. And his family is very diligent. Both of his parents are successful in their own respective ways, in their own respective fields. They have a nice place, like a compound basically, where they live, and it's kind of tucked away, and it's kind of like the epitome of what I would want to cultivate for myself in the ideal situation. And it's just being able to visit with these people and be in their place and be among them. A tree branch fell. To be among them and to be able to, it's like I soak in their essence almost. You know, the way that they are and the way that they do things, the way that they clean up everything, they're just so clean and they're so put together, but at the same time they're very like relaxed because they're already successful. It's kind of like it's something that it's definitely not something that I've grown up around. And it just made me, when I came home, it really gave me, I guess, inspiration, I guess a different perspective. It's like I experienced another point of view, another life, another way of thinking. You know, I grew up kind of learning either directly or indirectly from people's actions around me that work is horrible, and if you're busy and if you have a lot to do and you have a lot on your plate and you have a lot of responsibilities, you're an unhappy person, and money is evil. But you know, we deserve money and we want money, but we're not. There's just a lot of, you know, what I learned watching people's actions around me was basically that to kind of avoid everything and put everything off, and if you can find some sort of way to not work hard to take that, even if you don't really end up going anywhere, like whether you're like, I don't need to go into it, but I think you understand what I'm saying. It's just a completely different mindset where instead of, you know, because these people, my friend's family and him included, you know, he's just going off to start his training for his full-time job that he just that he's starting. He comes from wealth, there's no doubt about that, but his family doesn't baby him, and he's very smart. He has more opportunities than someone like me, just because of connections. And I'm not trying to deny that because it's obvious, but he's still working extremely hard. He was raised in a way where he wants to make his own wealth, and he wants to be on his own and create his own existence and legacy. And yeah, it's easy to think like, oh, well, you know, that's easy because he comes from, you know, people who are already successful, and it's easy for him to think that way because he always has something to fall back on. I wouldn't agree with that. I mean, you're free to feel that way if you want. This is just my experience, and it's not, you know, the perfect experience, but to me it's still inspiring for me because he is working harder than I am, or I was. And I think that was a reality check for me. Why is this person who is more privileged and helped and cared for than I am and supported, why is this person so much more diligent than me? Why are they so... And it's not just about diligence, it's about hard work. It's about self-control and just working long hours, toiling away and banging the hammer day in and day out. For me, a friend like that, someone who I see is working very hard and who is a good person and who's a smart person, that's someone that I want to surround myself with because he inspires me. And that's all that matters to me, is that inspiration and motivation and perspective. If I were to choose to not be friends with him, or have some sort of like victim mentality or something that stops me from hanging out with him every so often and, you know, from now on, because I just think that that would definitely hold me back, because I think that sort of mentality would cause me to be stuck in identity and ego. I'm not entirely sure where I'm going with this specific part. I think what I'm saying, just to get this out so I can move on, is I think a lot of people don't allow themselves to surround themselves with successful people. I think I think there's people who don't allow themselves to benefit from being exposed to people who are already successful. I think there are a lot of people who would rather resist and almost avoid those types of people because they choose to be offended, or they choose to feel like bitter towards those people because they have it better than them. And on that topic, I just want to say that is holding you back. It's not doing you any good. It's just making your life harder for no reason. If anything, it's doing nothing for you, and in the worst case, it's making your life harder. So I don't think that, if you have someone, if you want to be a successful person, you should try to surround yourself and try to understand successful people and understand how you can attribute advice or tendencies from them so that you can be more experienced mentally, so you don't get sucked into ways of living that are not efficient or ideal. I hope that makes sense. I'm not trying to be arbitrary or abstract. I'm trying to find the best way of expressing what I'm thinking. But basically, yeah, that's all I'll say on that, and then I will move on to the meat and potatoes of this video, which is what I've been saying completely ties to the meat and potatoes, because who you surround yourself with affects you, whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter what type of person you are. If you're surrounded by people who are not responsible, or people who are not, they don't have any sort of and I'm trying not to be mean, because I want you to take what I'm saying and not dismiss it. If you're surrounded by people, but I'll just be blunt, because that's all I can be. I honestly can't. That's just how I think, and that's just how I express my observations. If you're surrounded by people who don't have any purpose in life, you are going to be much slower in your own life, because there's nothing poking you. If you hang out with people who are at best the same situation as you, and at worst worse off than you, which I think a lot of people, instead of surrounding yourself with successful people, I think a lot of people surround themselves with people who are worse off than them so they can feel better about themselves. And that's just a waste of time. you're never gonna, like, if you want to be stuck, then surround yourself with people who are worse off than you, so that you can have that cheap feeling of superiority. Because that feeling of superiority that you have in the moment is literally your downfall. It's literally what's keeping you from becoming better and getting to where you want to be and becoming successful. At best, you're just going to stay where you are. And more likely, you're going to just... Because I think there's a... It's not a saying, but I've heard this before somewhere. It's the idea that if you... Like, you can never be stagnant in life. You can either always... You're always in motion. Either you're progressing or you're regressing. So if you think that you're, like, steady where you are and you're not really trying, and you're like, well, you know, my life is good as it is, I think the reality of that, unless you are actually good, because I'm not talking about someone who's actually successful and they're like, oh, I'm successful. Like, yeah, you're successful and you can probably relax. But I'm talking about someone who's, like, more delusional, where, you know, if it's a person who's surrounding themselves with, like, little minion people who they can, like, look down on and feel better about themselves, that is not a successful person. That's an unhealthy person who's deluded in their success. Like, if you have that sort of toxic, demeaning mentality, just know that you are regressing and you're not staying the same. Like, if you think that you like where you are slowly, like, declining. Because I don't believe that we can actually stay exactly the same. We're always changing. So either we're changing for the better or we're changing for the worse. So if you are focusing on arbitrary, retarded things like feeling better about yourself because your friend, you know, he's a fuck up, you know, at least you're not as bad as him, but you kind of keep him around, so it's this whole video is about shifting your mindset to be from, like, I think it's easier for people to, it's safer and it's easy, it feels good, it's like a in the moment instant gratification thing that I think a lot of people tend to do. People have a tendency to surround themselves with people who are lesser than them, because then they rationalize that, well, I'm keeping this person around so that I don't become like him or something, you know, or you're more honest and you're just like, well, you know, it makes me feel better. At least I'm not him, right? I think you should change your perspective to be like, to embrace the more uncomfortable. I guess it's uncomfortable for some people. If you surround yourself with people who are better than you, it might be uncomfortable at first, but that uncomfortability is what will actually cause you to get better. It's the only thing that will. If you're content, it's not even about being content. If you have contempt, I believe that is a different word. Contempt is, I believe, is a word that means if you have like a superiority thing where, you know, you have like it's almost like a delusion where it's like, you know, you can't tell me anything because I'm I'm good and you're not. That type of mentality, you're just not going to be exposed to what's better than you. And how are you going to get better? If you are so weak that you can't face what's better than you, I guess. It's windy. I feel like I rambled for a long time. And obviously I wasn't super efficient with my point, but I hope that you stuck around, and I hope that it makes sense. Man, this beat is actually hard to pop. I might just be weak. What kind of half? Whatever. That was kind of a sad attempt at doing some like ASMR or something. The less I smoke, the more I enjoy it when I do. I would not be as locked in as I am right now in these past couple weeks if I didn't go see my friend and I didn't go talk to him about my situation and I didn't hear about his situation and what he's doing about it and how he's living his life. He's making sacrifices, a lot, regardless of his situation and regardless of mine. I think that you just need to be smart enough. This is me being blunt again. You just need to be smart enough to understand that you just need to accept where you are and where you came from and not be bitter, and to take positive inspiration and use it and be proactive rather than be a bitter person who's like, oh, well, you know, must be nice or whatever. Because I've been like that. It's easy to be that way. And I feel like I have support because I have someone that I can look up to. And I feel I feel confident that I'm able to rebound and adapt and adjust with my own intentions in mind. It just makes me feel much more confident about myself, rather than wallowing in my own pity. I take inspiration from every interaction, whether good or bad. And it's the best thing that has happened to me, is being proactive. And part of that is choosing to surround myself with people who are proactive. Rather than people who are going to feed my negativity. I used to surround myself with negative people, whether in person or online. It doesn't matter. Now the only shit that I pay attention to is positive, as of recent. And I'm just taking action like never before. I'm only focusing on the positive. And ultimately, with this channel, I want to be that friend for you. Those of you who are watching, I see you as my friends. And that's why I love streaming, because I get to talk to you and grow this community. And I feel so blessed every day that I have good quality people who stick around for my long videos, where it might take me half an hour to get to the point, because I really do feel like I have something to offer. I just might not be the most efficient yet with saying it. So I appreciate that I have people that enjoy that, even, or at the very least are able to have the attention span to deal with it and to bear with me. I think as a person, I am working on being more people-oriented, but I pick and choose very wisely, or I pick and choose very carefully, because I only want to expend my energy to those who are offering me something as well. In the past, I've had a tendency of draining myself for others to do what they want to do, and it's not any benefit to me. And ironically, I end up being the person who's reaching out and doing all the work for others. And the relationship doesn't even benefit me. Like, you need to be selfish in a healthy way, where like, you need to be able to look at every relationship that you have and literally be like, is this relationship benefiting me? Because as you are my friends, I'm going to assume that you're people who tend to suffer from being too nice to other people and have relationships with people that aren't benefiting them, and that's not, and you're just helping that other person out. You know, you're being there, like, whether you're being their emotional dumpster or you're just like feeding their ego so they have someone to like hang out with. You don't have time for that. Like, I want to see you be successful. And in order to be successful, you need to have good quality relationships, even if that means having less relationships with people. Because those few good relationships go so much farther, and they're so much more fulfilling and so much more positive for both people. Yeah.